if you apply it in the wrong areas, you can spend a lot of money very quickly to not really solve a problem.
You're listening to 15M Mastering, a show that empowers you with insights from the leading iGaming experts to enhance your personal or business performance. The show is brought to you by tech-driven affiliate and media company Already Media, and supported by the AI-powered data analytics platform Blast, and Yo Investments, a fund manager investing in outstanding people who are disrupting the iGaming, fintech, and crypto industries. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to 15M Mastery. Today, we're joined again by Tom Ustunel, CEO of Sportingtech. Tom leads a platform that processes over 10 billion bets each month and still manages to keep up with fast-changing technology and, most importantly, user behavior. In this wild episode, we'll look at how to keep innovating in iGaming without building features that quickly become outdated. Welcome back, Tom.
Thank you, Dimitri. Good to be back.
I think the topic for this conversation is probably one of the hottest topics, not just in iGaming, but like the world these days. And this is AI, right? So let's try to dive a little bit deeper into what is the state of AI in iGaming right now.
Dimitri, I'm really not an AI expert. And because of that, I've been speaking to a lot of people who are spending considerable time on this subject, from literal professors in AI to reading a lot of books on it recently, and also speaking to a number of consultants who are working in California with some of the big tech companies in terms of the view on how do we really use AI and what is it going to do. And that is a really kind of, just even on a conceptual level, quite a strong thing to get your head around. And I do look, as probably most CEOs, my job is to look 5 years ahead, maybe even 10 years ahead, and say, look, what is this industry going to look like? When I mentioned one of those consultants who I was actually with only a week ago, and he works for one of the big four, and his job is to go into these companies and talk to them about their technology roadmaps and really pull them apart. And he said one of the questions that I asked them is, when will you see the first $1 billion company run by one person in your industry? Because that will come. There will be one person, might be a kid in their bedroom, that programs some new website on AI on their own, manage to do all the customer service and build, or it might be a game that they build on their own and that becomes $1 billion. That is coming. My view is that not everything's going to be automated and the world's going to be run by machines. I don't believe that, but it is conceptually, those questions are being asked in boardrooms outside of gaming. So I find this area absolutely fascinating.
Do you think is it really becoming tricky these days because everyone is just chasing AI for the sake of like having AI, and like you see what's happening with, Perplexity, OpenAI, the funds raise, like crazy race going on right now. How do you actually make sure that something you've built and invest into right now still works well in the future, especially when it comes down to AI, which is changing so fast?
Yeah, I mean, these are the questions that I'm putting to all of the people I'm speaking with. How do you know you're doing the right thing? A lot of these examples actually were given to me, so I don't think I'm a genius. As I said, I'm not an expert, but I have been talking to a lot of people on this. And one of them says, look, if you think about what ChatGPT does, for example, like any system, it has an input, it does a number of tasks, and it spits something out as an output. Now, in the case of ChatGPT, let's say you ask it a legal question or a health question. It would go out, it scours the internet, it makes that really concise and gives you an answer. Previously, you might have had to have called your GP, made an appointment, gone in, had a conversation, walked home. So there was a lot of process that it's cut out. Same with a lawyer. It can give you a very concise without having to pay a lawyer, set up a contract, speak to them. It's made that process much, much shorter, much better. In those use cases, it really, really does work. But again, this is coming to me from the people I'm speaking with. Implementing AI is not going to be cheap. The rewards are potentially exponential in terms of revenue, but the application of it is also very expensive. So you kind of made the point. If you apply it in the wrong areas, you can spend a lot of money very quickly to not really solve a problem. So going back to traditional kind of product management, where you go, what is the problem that we are trying to solve? Will AI solve it and make it better? is it worth the time and effort? And to give you an example, I had this even with our CTO. There are certain processes that we follow, and he said, "Look, we could put that into AI, and we could spend 3 months of developing the piece of software, so we could automate all of this. But at the moment, it takes one person an hour and a half, 3 times a year. It's not a process we're going to automate. So AI for the sake of AI could be an immense waste of time. And I think there's a lot of companies out there chasing it and trying to see can we put AI in every single facet of, and I think some of them are going to look back and go, we've over-engineered a lot of these problems, which really didn't require AI at the core of it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It just feels like you need to put AI next to every single area of the business without the even like necessity to do it. But talking about you guys, and I really kind of like that you came up with this example. How is Sportingtech is using AI to improve the platform, like for personalization, performance, safer gambling, whatever areas you might come up with.
So our kind of main objective is to, and being again transparent with your audience, is get the data and be able to expose all of the data points to AI so that we can use that data in real time, so it can feed back in real time. The obvious ones that are, out there is to look at player behavior and player data and make certain predictions on that can then inform your CRM, that it can inform your marketing. That's kind of at the basic level. My view is that in potentially in around 5 years, maybe slightly longer, maybe even slightly less, who knows, that the platforms are going to be adaptive to one person's individual playing habits. And that isn't going to be driven by a marketing team that's deciding, oh, Dimitri likes Arsenal, so we're going to give him an Arsenal offer. Maybe Dimitri does like Arsenal, but never actually bets on his own team because he doesn't believe it. An AI will look at the habits, and it will look at, again, speaking with a very informed AI expert, for us, it will be injecting other pieces of data that maybe not even in our database. For example, Google Map data might be overlaid to see actually, is there pockets of areas around a park or a particular jurisdiction where there's a tendency of VIPs, so the marketing team can focus on those. I think for us, it's building the platform in such a way that we could expose any part of the platform to AI, depending on, again, the use case and the value that we would get out of that.
They're very interesting, and it feels like if you can divide, the current application of AI like in areas in iGaming, it feels like personalization is the one studied the most because this like bet slip personalization, markets, games, and now even like casino lobbies. I've seen it like a few companies is doing this. Is actually something which is becoming a norm these days. But I'm just wondering, like, if it makes sense sometimes, and you also mentioned this, to really build an AI, or rather than hire more people, or try to build a technology without the use of AI. How do you evaluate and understand whether you should go one road or another without understanding your technology might become obsolete in 5 years?
I think you're absolutely right as well, in terms of, do you sometimes put more people on it rather than looking at AI? And I suppose, again, for me, being quite a people's person, and again, speaking to a lot of people, I was speaking to someone in the marketing and design area, and they said there already people are out there looking at creative that comes out of these marketing agencies, where it's obviously got a big hand of AI behind it in terms of some of the creatives that's been, and people are now already looking at authenticity. They're already saying, well, that's machine produced, and they're looking for the human touch. It was back in the day when, or even now, I think people would still agree that I'd rather speak to a human when I call up a contact center than to speak to a chatbot. Even though maybe the chatbot might even be better, I'd still rather speak to a human. So I think there's going to be an element of authenticity that's going to become more and more important in all of this. And the human element mustn't be forgotten, because humans don't necessarily want to interact with a machine. It might get to a point where the machine is actually indistinguishable from the human, at which point then we will have a dilemma. But until then, I think this debate will continue. My view and where I land is that I think that the human element is going to come back in a different way. I think a lot of the menial processing tasks that we do, give them up to AI. Now, you made an example about personalisation. Yes, I think they're the kind of areas in front end personalisation. If an AI can look at the heatsink of where is the player typically, interacting with on the site, make that button slightly bigger because they click on it or they miss it one in three times. I don't know about you, when you're typing on the iPad keyboard, I always press the dot button instead of the space bar. So it may recognize that and move the spacing of the keyboard to make it easier. Is that kind of adaptability to make your life and journey easier? I think that's where AI will absolutely be relevant and really do well. But in terms of when I call a customer service, I think I personally still want to speak to a human.
Yeah, I'm totally with you here. And I think what is happening with content, especially these days, is, the text content is becoming so generic and people are leaning towards, more like authority driven leadership and influencer created content
Yes,
against everything which is, written and
absolutely.
created by AI these days.
100%. Exactly. Agree with that.
So one very interesting thing you mentioned, that you as the CEO, like you're looking 3 to 5 years ahead, right? And I totally agree with you that, running such a big business, you must. But what do you think will actually separate successful iGaming platforms from the ones that fall behind in the next 3 to 5 years?
I think it really will be where that AI is well executed in the areas where it brings you the most value. I think a lot of people are going to throw a lot of money in areas that may not bring the most bang for their buck and end up spending a lot of time tinkering around and saying, well, we need the front end to do this and that, and almost guessing at what they are predicting. I think over time there are going to be. I honestly think that in the next 5 to 10 years, this industry is going to be unrecognizable with the amount of AI in certain aspects. The companies that pick where those aspects of improvement should be using AI, I think will be absolutely flying, and the ones that just try and implement it everywhere will just get a product that's probably very similar to somebody else. And what I mean by this, some of your listeners might remember there was Black Monday when all of the stock markets around the world crashed because they were all programmed. AI's been around for actually quite a while in terms of dynamic pricing for aircraft tickets. And in stock markets, it's been around. But on Black Monday, all of these machines, as one sold, the other one cottoned on, the other one sold, and the other one. So they all kind of worked together. And they basically, I think it was one of the biggest losses in history because all of these machines kicked in and sold all the stock, although there was fundamentally nothing wrong. And what I mean by that is if everybody follows the one path and go, we're going to make all of the front ends AI driven, you might find out then you've got 17 companies out there with almost very similar front ends, and the one that goes, you know what, we're not going to follow this, we're going to go and be the salmon and do something totally different, might be the one that wins that race.
Yeah, I agree with you. Okay, just to wrap up this conversation, I want to come up with one more wild question. So I want you to put that visionary Tom hat right now and think a little bit more about the interface of the user cooperation with the future casinos. I don't know if you've seen or not recently, but Google, especially, they came up with a series of very wild improvements with their video generated AI engine. And it feels like generating like videos and environments with just one code is probably coming very soon. So how do you think the user interface will change for the casino players in the future, if this will change or not? Because it seems like, videos, VR, AI are so closely tied with each other.
I have a different view, so I'm going to put my hat on and think about this. I used to play a lot of backgammon. I actually used to play a lot of poker as well back in the day. And some of you will remember, I won't give out the names because I don't want to insult them, but people designed really kind of interactive 3D poker tables. They designed backgammon boards that were held in space that you could 360 rotate around them and you could play in any position. At the end of the day, the customers always went back to the simple 2D backgammon that was really quick, really light. Same with the poker. If you look at the most poker products today, they haven't really evolved because the customer just wants that simple journey. I think again, it's that where do you apply it? If I'm speaking to their customer service and they bring up an AI generated looking human that can interact as good as a human, well, why not? Why don't I interact with them? But if you give me some part of a system that's just over engineered and takes me longer to get through, but it looks incredible, they're just forcing it down your throat, then I think those companies are going to struggle. And it goes, I suppose, back to that authenticity point. Which ones are going to be authentic with the products that they deliver for what the customer really, really wants? A lot of the time, the customer just wants to be able to get on, place a bet, and go.
I totally agree with you here. Thanks a lot, Tom. It was a great conversation about the potential application of AI and the future of the iGaming. And it's been a great pleasure to have you with us for these 2 episodes.
My pleasure too. Thank you for having me again.